In life, you have to take life by the horn sometimes, and not everything they tell you how it's always been is always the way you should do it. I think this guest I have today is an epitome of that, where they tell you how things should be done, and he's always going to find a way to be like, hey, there's probably more than just one right answer in life. Unlike what they teach you in school, of course. And obviously, I know he's passionate about how this country is going and supporting those around him as they get better in life, business, health, and wealth. And I think, Jesse, you are a epitome of that, brother. I know, without you, I wouldn't be where I'm at EXP, even meeting the people I have met. So thank you for that. But why don't you let everyone know who you are, what you're about, and then we can head into it.
Yeah, my name is Jesse Dow. I was actually born and raised in Portland, Oregon. And it's crazy. Obviously, that city went to hell in a handbasket extremely fast. And I was actually just thinking about this morning of how the transition happened 9 years ago. It all started. And I actually ended up moving, actually built my real estate business, got into real estate in 2017. In 2020, when the riots hit and everything, I actually lived right in the epicenter of everything going on in Portland and just couldn't take it anymore. A buddy of mine's dad was a prominent attorney down in Los Angeles. And he actually said, I went through the watch riots, and if the government had your back, you should feel safe. But the minute that the government doesn't have your back is the minute that you should probably think about relocating. And so when I saw Portland being told to stand down and they removed all the federal agents out of there and basically let everyone destroy the city, I decided it was time to leave. So I just packed up my stuff. Literally within 2 months, me and my business partner, we both left and left the team back there in Portland. And I moved to Arizona, and Jackson moved to Houston. And then I was down in Arizona for a couple of years, and now I live up in Eagle, Idaho. So still run my real estate business. I have a very, very unique model. Almost 100% of people that hear it, they're like, I've never heard of anything like this. And so my real estate business generates about $100 million a year. I'm 100% out of production and own a real estate marketing agency as well. And have a few Airbnbs and always looking to do more.
Of course, man. You can never have enough rentals.
Exactly. That's the truth.
God, it's so true. I don't know. I love it. And people, maybe it's because I think you like to operate as well and just the whole business side of the aspect. Some people just, they get tied up in just being an agent. But did it blow people away? Were people blown away when you were like, yeah, I'm operating my team not in Portland? Because I feel like it's uncommon. The old industry will tell you have to be they'll be 67 years old and they're like, oh yeah, I'm still taking listing appointments and doing all that stuff.
Yeah. So one of the most interesting things that happened through that whole process is when we first started generating leads through YouTube and having inbound leads, it actually started right before the pandemic hit in 2019. So it was the summer of is when our entire world changed. Long story short, we made an adjustment with what we were doing in digital and social marketing, and it completely changed the real estate landscape for lead generation, as you know, through the YouTube stuff. But as we started to gain notoriety and celebrity status through our YouTube stuff, the brokerage that we were at didn't really believe in what we were doing, and they kept telling us it was a flash in the pan. They didn't support us. We had agents calling us from all around the country wanting to work with us and team up. And we just had to find a brokerage that we were going to get into alignment with. And I remember this could go off on a whole other thing, but I started, I'd only been in real estate for 2 years at that point in time. And we'd already been accelerating growth really quickly. And nobody knew how to handle what we had created. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was trying to go out and re-interview the brokerages like Remax, KW, all that stuff. And I started out at Keller Williams. I was only there for 3 months and bounced. I didn't like the team model that was set up. I learned a lot through that experience, but ended up going to a smaller boutique brokerage. But we ended up making the move to EXP. And that was on March 1st, 2020, right before the Portland pandemic shut down. But the thing was right at that same time, we'd had another team or another agent contact us, and they wanted to buy our YouTube channel that was generating inbound leads. Right. And so we'd been in talks with an attorney over some other stuff at this point in time. Mm-hmm. And we were trademarking stuff and branding, digital brand stuff into place for protection. And it was kind of crazy. So so we had someone try to buy the show, and we'd been working with these attorneys, and I just asked him straight up. I was like, what does it look like to sell our business? We have an agent that wants to buy one of our YouTube channels. And he's just like, well, do you guys have to close the business deals? And are you working with the
Right.
clients when they come in? Like, he's like, one of the things I know through real estate is that when you go to sell your business at the end of your life, like a lot of these agents are integrated in the business. They're naming their team, their name. It's really hard to sell everything when it's all you. And I'm like, I've never not tried to not answer the calls or work with the clients, but that I don't think it's going to work. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, why don't you just try and see what happens? And in my mind, I'm like, I do it all. Like, and it's crazy. And actually, at the same time we moved to EXP,
Yeah.
I talked to one of our guys in our upline, Chuck Fazio, one of the biggest independent real estate brokerage in America. And I'd done a podcast actually, because when I got to EXP, I'm like, I just want to interview the top agents to see how they've grown and scaled their businesses, and also like stepped out of production. Because I was solely focused on production at this time. And the one thing Chuck said through my interview process with him was that he's like, if you're going to scale up, and he's like, I've never seen anything like you guys have built. He goes, but if you're generating all these high quality leads, like you should step out of production. So then this attorney asked me about it. So I called Jax on the phone. I said, hey, dude, I'm going to stop selling real estate. And I literally stepped out of production on April 1st, which was like 30 days after EXP joining. And I told my buyer's agent that just started with us in October of 2019. And this is April of 2019. So she'd been in there for 6 months. I said, hey, you're going to start answering these calls and working with these clients without my assistant. And she's like freaking out. And she's just like, no way, no way, no way. And I remember we were sitting in the office and the phone rang and I said, you need to answer this call. And she's like, well, what do I say? I said, I don't know. I said, just have a conversation with them. Even if they don't talk about real estate, I go, these people are calling to talk to us. So the lady called. She was actually from Florida. And I know her well now because she's bought multiple houses with us. She was actually an investor. And she has a very unique name. I won't say it on the show. But she calls and Heather talked to her, and it ended up being like super easy. And then Heather, our team lead now, she was like, because part of our process is getting to the clients on Zoom calls. Yeah. And before COVID, Zoom was a hard thing. People thought we were putting, viruses on their computer. Exactly. Yeah. So we didn't show up to the Zoom call, and people would always ask like, oh, where's Jesse? Where's Jackson? We just said, we told our team to tell them that we're out shooting content. You know, we're the ones that handle the clients on the transactional side of the business. Yep. And honestly, like we've only, in the history of doing hundreds and hundreds of sales through YouTube, we've only had like one person super adamant about wanting to work with us directly. So when you ask that, I kind of have to give the backstory because it wasn't an easy process to make that decision. And I was one of those people that thought I had to be the end all be all. But then that year, our business went from 12 million to 50 million during 2020 pandemic. And then the next year we shot up to about almost 100 million. And then last year we ended up around, we were back around the same volume again. Units were down a little bit. Volume was up about the same. So we're coming in anywhere between like 93 and 100 million in volume. And essentially, we just use other teams to close our business, kind of like a Zillow Flex program.
No, it's awesome. And I think anyone who knows Heather, if not, you should definitely look at her up. She's a boss now. Like, it's funny that she was afraid in the beginning because now she's the boss, you know? She runs it like a tight ship from what I've seen. So I don't think anyone can contest that. What's crazy, I think, is like, as someone who's like created the team in the beginning, how crazy is it to see someone who went from like, I mean, what was she doing before she came on your team?
So before Heather came on the team, she was in title and escrow for 25 years. And then she actually was like on a 1 year hiatus with her dad got cancer and her father-in-law. It was either her dad or her father-in-law. I can't remember the exact details. I want to say her father-in-law because he just passed away. Right. Unfortunately. Yeah. So she, her first year in real estate, she did like 60 transactions for us. That's crazy. And so, yeah, it's real crazy from zero. And literally like all she did is I told her when she first started, I said, all I need you to do is follow me around like a little dog, like take notes, ask questions, watch me do what I do. And that's it. And then, instantly we gave her part of our business, for just following me around. I paid her. And then I said anything that went in her contract when she worked with me, like she didn't even have to work with the client. I just wanted her to learn. And so we set up a real unique model for her now. She runs the team. She gets a piece of everyone's deals, whether it's personal or team generated. But most of our agents don't generate their own deals. I mean, I had 3 agents quit me this year in Portland. The market shifted and it's crazy, dude. Like out of all the deals that we provide, it's sad to say that some of them only created like 1 or 2 of their own deals in the past couple of years. So they weren't out there trying to build their own business or follow up with clients they closed or ask for referrals. Yeah. And once the market shifted, 3 of them all bounced. They didn't want to pay their dues. So for us, it really hasn't impacted. The crazy thing is dude, like my volume actually for gross commission this year, I was down Q1 2023 versus Q1 2022. And this was last week. So the month hadn't finished out. We actually closed like 8 deals this week.
Nice.
I was actually down $50,000 in commission, but my net profit was up $40K. So actually, I netted 90,000 incremental dollars this year.
And that's the thing. Everyone wants to focus on transaction numbers, but what's funny to me is that I think after this being probably the third business I've ever run, besides I think I started with lawn care when I was a teenager, and then actually my first real business was that mobile notary business I ran in San Diego. Is people always focus on the transactions, but I'm like, how much are you taking home? Because like agents love to swipe that card and just buy random stuff. And the reality is like, how much is your team taking home? You know.
Well, that's the crazy thing, dude, is like I'm really big into tax strategy. Of course, and so last year, I'm not going to say the exact number of what I made, and what I had to, what my earned income was. And this is all legit, 100% legit. I'm not doing any freaking crazy tax stuff. The government could audit me today. It's 100% legit. But I was able to get my earned income down by about 7x off of the top line.
I believe it.
And so it was and it was all done through investments. It was all done through like IRAs, 401ks, all that stuff. And like my tax guy said when I first met him, he said, I can get you to $0 in taxes, but you're going to have no spending money. Yeah. And I'm like, that sounds like crap. So I'm now working my way to get to that. And I know what they mean now. Like, cause Robert Kiyosaki and all these guys always say is like, they make $1, they invest it into real estate, and then they do draws on their real estate. So they don't have to actually take an earned income.
Yep. No, I love it. It's so true. And that's a huge thing. I think even real estate agents need to know, like, we'll transact the product, but we don't actually learn what it can do for anyone. Well, that's I think what blew me away, actually backtrack a little bit, was I think when I first was looking into joining underneath you at EXP was your team model. I mean, it's a lot of people, it's very cutthroat. Like they supply leads to their agents, but it's usually like, oh, I'm just going to sign up for Zillow Flex or whatever. And I'm just going to funnel these crap leads. I mean, that was my first thing in the industry was ISA work, right? And you had a different approach to it. Like it was actually, I think most people probably would think you're crazy with how generous you were. When in reality, it seems pretty normal to those of us that are probably in this concept. But
So I was gonna say the thing that actually inspired me with that is I went to this conference, and it's a team lead out of Houston, runs one of the biggest teams in the country, not at EXP. Yeah. And the one thing that he was struggling with was I think a lot of real estate agents were struggling with, and still to this day, it's like they run these 50-50 splits or whatever they are, but they're just siphoning leads to their agents and turning them into the ISAs. So what he did is he went to all of his agents and he said, hey, look, if I could guarantee you to his buyer's agents like $125,000 a year, $125,000, do you care what your split is? And if you come up short, I'll write a check for the difference as long as you're doing the activities that we ask you to do. Right. They said 100% on board. He goes to his listing agents. If I can guarantee you $175,000 a year and you don't have to, as long as you do the activities, we'll write you a check for the delta. Do you care what the splits are? No. Cool. So his listing agents went on a 15% split. His buyer's agents went on like a 25% split, but he also hired 12 ISAs and was and buying massive leads and doing all the things. And he was qualifying all the leads. So when the lead finally got to the agent, they were already a warm or a hot lead. Nice. So now the agents just had to close deals. And so once I figured that model out, and once I realized I controlled the leads and I was really good at getting the leads, I was like, and hot leads for that, I realized that I could charge any split I wanted as long as the agents were making money and just doing the work.
Like, I think that's why Redfin still exists.
Oh, 100%. And this is what you're starting to see a lot of the models go to. You're going to see Zillow is moving in that direction. They call them like buyers concierge, and
see ads every they're pushing hard with it.
So if you can guarantee an agent, not even a salary, and I've tried the salary models, they don't really work that well because now they're getting paid to do nothing. So the production goes down a lot. Yeah. And it was just one of those things where I give my agents, even on their own personal deals, they get 75%. But on our deals, they get, depending if they're a team leader or a team agent,
That's awesome. I think that's the way it should be, to be honest with you. I mean, even right now, as I leave San Diego, like it's the same thing. Like you control the leads and like you can just make it happen, Yeah. Also, to be honest with you, I think most agents leaving the industry, like blows people away that you have the model set up the way you do. Because
Well,
I think
the
that's most of us, that's what we're looking for.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is like, so I said I basically affiliate my leads off to other teams. So I went to like all these team leads around the country, said, hey, I have this great program. I just need someone to close my deals.
Yeah.
It was a way I also recruited them to EXP, which actually ended up paying off very, very well. But the thing is like now I'm getting these agents on my teams that close our deals. They're like, dude, with this market shift, 100% of my deals come from the YouTube channels. We have 20,000 plus agents that come through our program. And, I get messages every day with agents thanking us. I don't really talk a lot about this, but they're like, hey, if it wasn't for what I learned that you guys teach, I would be out of the business, and whether they would be or not, I don't know, because they probably would have taken a different action and they could be surviving. But I was in that whole cold calling and open house thing. And that's what inspired me to do what I did, is because it was such a hustler's business. And dude, it's a grind. And I'm like, nobody can outwork me. Like I was working 24/7. I'd gone through a divorce. I was like working 7 days a week, and I was closing my first year I did 24 deals. The second year I did 24 deals, and there was just no limit, dude. And I'm like, there is no way I'm going to build a traditional model. And this is what happens with the traditional models, the real estate teams, is the team lead was doing what I did, where they're out there generating all the business. They're now dispersing the leads off, but they're not closing more deals and they're not making more money. And it creates a vicious cycle. And that's what happens. And the franchise freaking model loves that, because, they don't want to help the team lead exit production.
No, churn and burn.
Exactly. So then I studied teams a lot. I realized that there's teams that have a ton of agents and they expect high churn, and they're just generating tons of low quality leads. Then there's the teams that operate like at a high margin. They have less agents, but they're like a lot more integrated into the business. So I saw this blue ocean of like, where I'm like, okay, how do I set up a system where I'm generating the leads? I don't have to be involved, all the things. And like, trust me, dude, I started off with 13 ideas and one of them worked.
Well, I think that's entrepreneurship in itself. Everyone knows a fancy term out, but the reality is it's like 1,000 failures, and then one just takes off enough to pay off for the failures.
Well, the interesting thing is like early on, I saw things that kind of like giving me little hints. And like I said, we did 13 things at the same time, and I invested 6 figures into the whole system, dude. We're doing everything at a high level. And it's real sad to dump $10,000 a month into something that doesn't work. And that was one platform. But like, as I started kind of seeing like little indicators come along the way of like what was happening that I liked, I had a business partner that was like wanting to throw in the towel, and he wasn't funding anything. He was just like the one doing a lot of the work and like the talent per se. And I was like the financial piece of it. And I just kept telling him, I'm like, dude, I'm funding this operation. Like, don't worry. Like, and one day I go, a lot of people, I still remember the conversation. And I was like, there's like a book called 3 Feet from Gold. And it talks about how like so many people give up like right before things break loose. I remember telling him that. I said, dude, one of these days things are going to break loose and it's going to be like the greatest thing ever. And like I was telling you about how like things started to transpire. And that's what happened, is like we made one little tweak in our business, and like the freaking floodgates just opened.
Man, a lot to touch on there. I think one thing I think that sticks in my head right now is everyone thinks like, oh, if I just make like over $100,000 a year in GCI, all my problems are solved. I know that's false. What problems? Obviously, in the beginning, it's just bringing in the income. But what problems do you face now that your business is this big? Because I know the problems only get bigger the more money there is, and I think people just don't necessarily understand that.
Well, okay, there's a couple layers of that. Like one is the lifestyle creep. So you make more, you spend more, and it's like Grant Cardone talks about this a lot. So for me, the thing that I always talk about with agents and my people I know is that like you have to layer things in and build things brick by brick, and understand, like when you talk to a financial advisor, they're like, our goal is to get you 6%, right? They use a base model. I think it's like 4% return over the course of 20 years, whatever. That's a real healthy number. I think it's 4 to 8. Who knows what the exact number is? But like everybody wants this big 30, 60, 100% return. I was on this call last week when they were talking about selling websites that generate leads, and they're looking at it like real estate, and like, here's why it's better than real estate and all these things. And it was just like this get rich quick thing. I was talking to my financial advisor last week, and he's like, we were talking about the market and everything that's going on with the financial industry. And he's like, how much money did you give me last year? And I'm like, I think I put like 50,000 into my 401k. And he goes, okay. He's like, how much is in there today? And I'm like, 100. He's like, okay, you doubled your ROI. He goes, what was my promise to you? I'm like, it was like 4%. He's like, exactly. He's like, all these people are out there promising the world like these massive returns. I'm promising a low return. And yeah, we took advantage of some things and some good things happen. And that's the thing though. And like, we're very safe. But when you start making money and things start transitioning, especially when 6 figures in GCI is really nothing. After taxes and all that stuff, you're probably going to end up with like 60 grand.
Yep.
It's, you got to pay. People don't understand your insurance costs go up significantly, especially if you have kids. So I'm a huge proponent in membership based healthcare, like in paying cash. I do have catastrophic insurance, but I think the tax or the insurance industry is absolutely corrupt.
Yep.
I love paying cash for a lot of things, but then as you start building financial, and anytime somebody asks me, is like, hey, do you have a CPA or someone I can talk to about tax advantages? My thing is always, I'm like, hey, here's the deal. Is like, it's going to be a 2-year buffer till you can really start like getting the real benefits. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like last year, and how I was able to get my taxes down significantly was through cost segregation with tax advantages. And so that took off, per house was about $100,000 to $150,000 right off the top. Yep. So that was a massive advantage. And so like my goal now is like, I was like, if I really want to take advantage of the situation, is like last year I bought 2 houses. And I got significant tax savings with that. Well, if the market shifts and now I don't have an extra 20% per $500,000 house, so that was, I had to bring $200,000 to buy 2 houses. I get my cost segregation, which saves me $300,000. That's a net plus of 100. But here's the deal: if I don't have that extra $200,000 this year, I now just don't buy the houses. I don't have the tax saving, and it's basically gonna be a wash. And I don't get my houses. So it really comes down to like building a real plan. Yeah. And knowing exactly what you want to do with your money, and just knowing that you need to make adjustments. And I'll tell you, I have a performance coach, and he always says, like, a lot of people say that you need to have 4 or 12 months of like net income in your savings to cover 12 months of expenses if crap hits the fan. Yep. He lives by the creed that we need to have 4 years, 48 months. And he's like, when you can get to 4 years of all of your expenses and savings, then you can make life-changing decisions. So when I got to 12 months in my bank where I could cover all my expenses for 12 months, it really allowed me to stop thinking about today and like making decisions based on like a fear-based mindset, and allowed me to like really accelerate forward. And so like now, like my Airbnb's cash flow significantly. I've got that account built up very, very well. My, my revenue share at EXP is doing very, very well. And so realistically, I'm always trying to just, if I can create an asset that pays for itself and like net incremental money, I think it's a no-brainer. So like when I see real estate agents out there selling real estate, I went to this event a few weeks ago and I heard Michael Burnoff, he's a linguistics professional. He always said the biggest problem that in his mind is that real estate agents think like real estate agents. They don't think like business owners. And he's like, and if a real estate agent actually thought like a business owner, like EXP is a no-brainer. It's like, he's like, if you had this conversation with the agent's spouse, then there would probably be a lot of fights, because the spouse that's not in real estate would be like, why are you not here? Like, it's so crazy to me. Yep. So I don't know. I mean, I could retire today if I wanted to, just off the revenue share at EXP. But for me, I'm like, I love everything so much, and I love just building and doing more. And I'll tell you, like, I'm 100% out of production, and I do talk to my team and the agents, and I probably spend, a few hours a week on that. But if I didn't want to do it, I don't have to do it. Right. And of course, like, I always want more. I always want bigger, but I also don't spend frivolously. And that's another big piece of the puzzle is there's a lot of agents out there and people that make money is they get that first fat paycheck. And I've seen this happen with agents because I've brought on so many agents is they'll get that first paycheck. They don't save for taxes. They don't save for marketing. They don't save for anything. And now they got like a $25,000 payday. They think they have another one coming around the corner, and then another one never happens because they got lucky. I call it like the first open house curse. Is they go to their first open house, they get a deal, and it's like, that was easy. And that happened to me with my first door knock. The first door I ever knocked on was a listing. And then I was cursed because then I went door knocking for 6 months straight. And I never got another one.
Yeah. That's crazy. For average agents, I always preach profit first, because most agents aren't going to be making tons of money. It's just the reality of things, right? I mean, everyone wants to make $1 million, but even as a man in this country, like only 23% roughly make more than $100,000 a year earned income into their account.
Oh yeah,
So
I just read a thing that said $50,000. Like if your parents said they made $50,000 back in like I think it was 1983, is
yeah,
equal to $280,000 in today's with the cost of living. I'm just like
I know.
that is crazy because when I was growing up, like hearing somebody make 50K was like a really big deal.
Yeah, and if they made 100K, they were set. Like they
Oh yeah,
were, yeah. I grew up in the country, so if you made 100,000 a year around there, like, oh man, you probably had like 50 to 100 acres, probably just living the life, right? Like that.
You-
That was the person you wanted to talk to about money. Now,
Yep.
I mean, especially living in San Diego, the average household income is 120,000 a year, which means you probably have two parents working 60,000, which is a whole nother conversation I have a passion about because people like my wife like stays home with the kids a lot, and people get blown away by that, and I'm like, I just like she still helps for sure. Like without her, like
Well,
none of this would happen. That's just the
oh
reality of
dude,
it.
that the whole thing of like empowering the women to get in the workforce and not
Uh,
become moms and support the family and
like
all
being a
that
mom's
stuff
a
is
bad thing, and I think it's,
oh yeah.
it's stupid. It's really stupid. You shouldn't be a man. You should just cower and not do anything. Like people ask, like, why do you like so have a drive to do all this stuff? I'm like, because that's my job, provide for my family. Like,
Yep.
sure, like equal rights, like that's all great and all, but the fact that society tells women that being a mom's a bad thing, I'm like, that's the greatest thing I think you could be. Really?
Yeah, I was listening to this thing. It was called Celebrating Equity, and it was all about,
Mhm.
and it was celebrating Women's History Month. And I just want to hear what they said.
Yeah.
And the one thing that they were saying is that like during COVID, and they were talking about all the different racial demographics of like, how many less than like white women left the workforce way less than like Latino or Black, but they were all under 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were saying that it's the woman's job now to be in the workforce and be a mother. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, that's what they tell you.
Yep.
And that's what they want you to like, they want you to lead you down this path to believe that. Because obviously when you put women in the workforce, and trust me, dude, if a woman wants to go out there and ball out, dude, more power to them. Trust me.
My thing is like, how many agents do you know, like especially women who are like in their 40s, single, no kids, nothing. And like I've talked to enough people that are 60s and 70s, is like family's all you got. Like I heard someone recently tell me, it's like, look, like grandmother passed away and you had like 30 people in a room just for one woman. Like, cause she like it stems off and like that one person.
And none of them are from her career. None of them are from her businesses. It's all family, dude. And that's the crazy thing is at the end of the day, and you know what's going to happen is like, and there's a lot of these women now coming out and they're saying like, they're in their 40s, they're, climb the corporate ladder. They're extremely miserable. They're extremely lonely. And then their job is only going to satisfy them so long. And, I mean, this could go into like such a deeper conversation. And it's just like, it drives me crazy to put a lot of pressure on women in that regard. And then now you have men transitioning into becoming women, and now they're winning they're winning all of these accolades, and it's like, so now you're marginalizing women.
Yeah.
So it's like you're literally setting them up for failure. It's freaking crazy because like what I see now is like all these corporations trying to like make sure that they're equal and all these things. Well, now a man comes along and takes that job. Why wouldn't men just become women? It actually incentivizes a man in a way to become a woman. If they're just saying, hey, we're only going to choose you based on your race or your gender. And then now they take this job back.
Yeah, it's going to bother me. There's a book about a woman who, she already had male features and she became a man for a couple of years to see, because she was a feminist. She believed that men had it easier, right? God, what is her name? I can't remember off the top of my head. If you Google that concept,
I saw this.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I actually read a synopsis of it, and yeah, at the end of it, it's like she was like, yeah, men have their own problems. And for society to say that one's better than the other, or one deserves something more, or not equality, is like, it's false. What's sad is she ended up committing suicide because she felt like her whole life was a lie at the end of that story, which is sad. But it's society. Like, I don't know. I keep my mantra is keep everything simple, and people try and complicate things. And I'm like, look, like humans have done pretty well throughout history. We've had some bad things, sure.
My wife and I were talking about this yesterday, and we were saying how like now there's reports that if you're the middle child, you're born with a disadvantage and all these things. And I was like, you know what? I was born in May, so I'm like the youngest of my class. So people that are born in November, they're the oldest in the class, November, December.
So
I have a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we should make all kids start on the exact same date of their birthing order. So like if they're going to start right on their 6th birthday, it doesn't matter if the teachers are put out. But we need everyone to start on their 6th birthday, so that way everyone's equal in this world. And it's crazy, dude. Like, you know, many people like, so very big on social media. I get people hitting me up all the time. They're like, do you know how much privilege you have? You're, you know, all these things. I'm like, okay, first of all, I came from a very lower middle class family. My parents were divorced. The house I grew up in didn't even have air conditioning. I think we got our first wall unit when I was like 16 years old. I never went to college. I never had the opportunity. And it's like all these things. And it's like, I went straight into the workforce. And my mom always used to say is like, you don't need to go to college to be rich or to become successful. And she never drove me into entrepreneurship. She was like, she worked for the police department and my dad worked for a mill. And the thing was, and my dad was like a major alcoholic. He actually died from liver cancer. And the thing is like, I was very resentful of my family for me not being able to go to college because I graduated in 2000. And every one time I would go in for an interview, they always ask like, what college did you graduate? And everybody was in this whole college like world. And now fast forward today, I just made this post. I don't know if you saw it, but it said like baby boomers, when they like had 20% of the wealth when they were at this age at like 30, the next generation had 10% of the wealth at this age. Now millennials only have 4% of the wealth at the age of 40 years old. And it's like, and now they've all been told to go to college. They've all been told to go into debt. And now they hold the least amount of wealth in the world. And it's like, it's so crazy. We all do what we're told.
It's crazy, but being only 29 at the tail end of millennials, I get excited because I'm like, oh, good. So there's opportunity for me. Like, you can't believe how many times people, like, when they see my age and they're like, oh, wow, you showed up on time. Like, things that should be common that my dad raised me to do is blows people away just because I'm in that age bracket. I'm like, that's sad. It's sad. But at the same time, for those of you who are willing to go out there and just do it, like, the opportunity's there. You know,
one of the most amazing things is I saw someone make a post yesterday and they're like, I made a post to hire an executive assistant. Like, I got 60 applicants. And he goes, out of those 60 applicants, I responded and I asked those 60 to send a video and a like 1 paragraph response of this video of this information. He's like, only 28 of the people responded. And I can't believe that because 60 people. And I'm like, someone I know that's very well qualified, was in the Marine Corps, was in the Peace Corps, was in the AmeriCorps, lived in another country, speaks fluent languages. He's been applying to all these jobs. And he said what he realized is that a lot of them, when they fill out the applications, they're just looking for specific keywords in the resume. So he's like, literally, I just build these resumes with these keywords. And he's like, I keep getting responses, but I don't even read the job descriptions when I'm applying because it's not based on who I am. It's just based on what's in my application. So he's like, a lot of them, I look at the application or the response from the company, and I'll look at the company after I get my response if they decided to move forward. But he's like, it's so washed out now that, and so I was talking to the guy that was talking about hiring, and I said, this is the problem that we're having, you know, and now you're seeing like the breakdown of, you know, you're seeing all these train derailments and all these things. And dude, before you know it, we're going to start seeing plane crashes. We haven't had a deadly plane crash in over 20 years.
Knock on wood there. Yeah, I know.
And now like pilots are having heart attacks. They're like trying to put one pilot in the plane. It's like, dude, it's freaking crazy, dude. Like literally like all of this deterioration. And
I'm telling you, I've never been more interested in getting my pilot's license.
There you go.
Hey, short-term trips, man. But that's because I worked on them for 5 years. So I just love planes, man. It's fun. You know, you talk about people getting hired, and were all those candidates in the U.S. or was it a mix?
Oh no, it was all local.
Yeah, so I just hired an executive assistant so I have 2 VAs on my team now, and people ask like, why do you do this? Oh, it's because you pay them so little. I'm like, that's not true at all. My video editor gets paid $5 an hour, and he can support his family and do a ton of stuff. The executive assistant I just hired, she was in tears when I hired her because for her, this is life-changing. And she's only 23. Life-changing experience for her. And they're so dedicated. It's probably what American workers used to be like, Jesus, 100 years ago. Now everyone wants to get paid like $30 an hour, and they have nothing to give. They just want to clock in, clock out. I'm like, no, like this, like that's not who I need. Obviously, there are good people here for sure, and I think I love helping agents more, as I know you do. And that's one way of giving back to those inside of our country, or like teaching just investments for those who want to listen. But most people in this country, they just want to blame people nowadays.
Well, the VA situation. I mean, I think we have 11 or 12 now, and you know, the one thing the VA companies do a good job with in explaining this is like it's called insourcing. And what that means is like you can now use a $5 employee to generate more business inside the United States, which does create more jobs. It creates more opportunities because if we didn't create that leverage, one is we couldn't afford to do it inside the
Right.
United States based on what you just stated. So now, like with the $5 employee overseas, now I'm providing more business to my lender. I'm providing more business to my title officer. I'm now providing more opportunities to families because I can serve more people.
Yep.
I now can bring on a buyer's agent. It creates so many more opportunities. And that's the problem is everyone keeps looking at these everybody wants to be fair and everybody wants to create all these like micro aggression plans that like, keep everyone's feelings in okay mode. And it's just like, dude, it's like, let's get back to capitalism. Let's get back to like creating jobs. Let's
true
get back to
capitalism,
creating
not that
money.
not that Wizard of Oz capitalism, where there's a guy behind the green screen. Yeah, no, not that kind. No, we've had enough of that. Like the whole like executive orders and all that stuff. I'm sorry, that's not that's not what we were built on. That's just one man making a decision. That's called a dictatorship.
Exactly. And the most interesting piece too is like when you hear about people talk about like all this stuff and I say, oh, if this is the way you really want it, like go spend some time in a third world country, go serve a mission and go see exactly what real pain feels like and see what people with real struggles look like. Because being born in the United States is one of the greatest things in the world. It's like, I heard someone say this the other day. They said, when you go around the world and you ask people in China, is there such thing as living the Chinese dream? If you go to Japan, is there living the Japanese dream? No, every single person talks about living the American dream. It's like, even how crazy things get here, it's still a better situation than in most countries. Like, yeah, there are people that live in other countries that absolutely love it. But when you're talking about freedom for all, it's like, there's amazing opportunities.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, even look at like having the Second Amendment, like that's like a failsafe. I mean, you look at England, like power companies were just, I read an article that they were just breaking into people's homes because they were like, we got to change your power stuff, for green peace or whatever, green energy. So they just go into people's homes without any due process. They just go in your home. And the same thing happened here in Colorado. People had a clause, remember, where they controlled their thermostat. And it was like the biggest snowstorm of the season, and they couldn't put it past like 60 degrees or something like that inside their home. Or whatever low amount it was. It's America, and again, everyone needs to read their contracts because there was a clause in there. But they signed onto this energy saving program, so it still exists here, but they're not breaking into your home because that Second Amendment is people want to take it away and blame it for everything. Again, going back to no personal responsibility. We just need to blame people.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is like when you talk about the Second Amendment, obviously it brings up a lot of controversy, and one of the things that drives me nuts is like Joe Biden. Like I listened to yesterday, like Mayorkas and all these guys talk at Congress, and they're like talking about they clump everything into an assault rifle, and then they reference assault rifles and AK-47. Like everyone that has an assault rifle they compare the AR-15s to the AK-47s. They make everyone believe that an assault rifle is a fully automatic machine gun. They twist up the terminology.
Not to mention, you need like a lot of. It's a fully automatic, like an M240 would cost you thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah,
not even to mention the process of getting the tax stamp to get it.
Well, I live in Idaho where you can buy a fully automatic machine gun, but it has to be made before like 1984. And yes, I looked into buying one. They're like the cheapest one's like $30,000.
Yeah, it's crazy expensive, and I would pay it if I had the money.
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me, dude. I want a P90 so bad.
Yeah. Oh man. God. Like an old Tommy gun. Oh, that'd be great. I'd get that.
There's a day here. They have got a fully automatic machine gun club here. And they do twice a year. They do a watermelon shoot and they do a pumpkin shoot.
But then it's the ammo afterwards. Like that's the government's they find loopholes, and that's modern day America. Like, well, we can't fully get rid of this, right? So we're just gonna like shut down ammo factories, and we're gonna not do surplus anymore, and all that.
Well, when I go to Vegas every once in a while, and I love going to the range because you can get the guns. And every time the last couple of times I've gone there, the P90s they don't have ammo for them. And they're like, we can't get it. But it's crazy because like one pull of the trigger is like $25 because it shoots like.
Well, what's crazy to me is everyone talks about, gender equality. I'm like, there's nothing more equal than holding a firearm. I'm telling you. Like, I don't care if it's a 120-pound soaking wet woman and the guy weighs like 250 ripped out of his mind on steroids. Yeah, that's equality. It'll make it pretty equal pretty quick.
Yep, the neutralizer.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. I did this video yesterday, and I haven't posted it yet because it's going to cause a lot of controversy. But I'm like,
I love it.
When Timothy McVeigh bombed Oklahoma City. You know, he used fertilizer, diesel, and a Ryder moving truck. It's like common things that we all use, but putting those things together created a disaster. And it's the same thing with 9/11. You had
just like how everyone can make mustard gas at home too. Yeah, we all have this stuff, you know.
And then 9/11, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 planes flying into a building. It's like any one of us could, have the opportunity to do that. And, you can either build a building and become very famous, or you can destroy one and become very famous. Yeah. You pick your poison. And now when they bring up these gun things is like, and I saw the post that said like, who do people, when they need a protection and a gun, is they call the police. Like everyone needs somebody with a gun to come and protect them when shit hits the fan. And now it's like nobody wants to address the core root issue, which is mental health. And the thing is and the reason why is because the government doesn't monetize it. Insurance doesn't cover it, is because you can't say like, you don't have a hole in your arm, you're not bleeding, we can't put a Band-Aid on that and charge you $40. So the reality is now the biggest pain point, because you got 50% of people that say gun control needs to happen, 50% that say no. Yeah. And so it creates a pain point where they can put a lot of pressure. And it's like they want to keep putting these Band-Aids on these stupid little, issues that actually are mental health issues,
Well, they use these issues just to take more rights away every time. I mean, 9/11, the Patriot Act was like one of the worst things ever created.
Oh, yeah.
And people, they put these fun names on. I mean, I read, that was actually this morning, getting fired up for this show. But in 2014, they had the Safe Communities Act, or I forgot what the full name is, in California. And everyone voted for it because they were like, yeah, I want a safe community. And that's one of the bills that allows criminals to get a slap on the wrist. And look what it's translated into now. I mean, even look at Portland, man. I mean, how many businesses, even big businesses, have left Portland? Where they're like, hey, we're shutting down our doors. We're not going to be here anymore. San Francisco, you can't find a CVS or like a Walgreens there anymore inside city limits. They're pulling out.
Oh, well, they also said that they're, I think another thing that has to do with that is Gavin Newsom in California said that they wouldn't put Walgreens on the list for like approved pharmacists because they banned abortion medication in like the 13 states that it's not fully allowed in. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously with like everything running rampant, it's freaking crazy. And I love, like, when you talk about like Black Lives Matter, it's like, it's funny because like when I named my real estate team, that's why I named it Real Agent Now. It's because I was like, it's a play on those words, exactly like they're doing. I
appreciate that. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And this whole like, they call it like with the banks and everything, the rescue plan. And it's like, dude, it's not a freaking plan. They're loaning people money to put it back in a big bank.
Oh, yeah. So, California is the epitome. It sucks that Portland's become such, because like Oregon is a beautiful state. I mean, we thought about moving there a couple years ago. We were there in 2019, actually, was when the last time I was in Portland. And I just have no desire to go back now.
Well,
but
what's crazy is they interviewed Kate Brown. She's the former governor of Oregon. And she served her 2 terms. And that's why I was saying 9 years ago, because 9 years ago is when she came into office.
Gotcha.
And, she was saying, they were saying like, some people say you did a good job for certain things. Some people said you did a bad job. But one of the things that you really flopped on was COVID. And she's like, everyone says that you basically followed Gavin Newsom and his executive orders, just like Hawaii did. And she's like, that's absolutely insane, because I'm text messaged Gavin Newsom and the governor of Washington and said like, let's attack this like a region. And I'm like, this is the problem, is none of them are individually thinking. They're just, they're attacking Group it as so she said, we made an agreement in the morning that we weren't going to shut everything down. She said, then later that night, Gavin Newsom comes out and files an executive order to shut everything down. So she said, since we all made an agreement to act as a region, I just followed that suit. So I'm like, here you're saying that you're going to keep it open. You guys are going to act as a region. Gavin Newsom says that he's going to keep it open. Then he changes his mind. So then you change your mind.
But don't worry, he was having fancy dinners and stuff. See, like California, when I moved out here, I realized, I'm like, oh, it's the haves and the have-nots. And they have done a very good job. Apparently in the 90s, it was awesome. That was the last decade that it was a red state. Not saying the Republicans are great either. It's the greatest party of not doing anything, unfortunately. And we have a lot of changing, like Kerry Lake. And, there's a huge wave of change in that party. But, I mean, California's it's the haves and the have-nots, It's like, oh, if you don't have anything, you have to follow all these mandates. I mean, I can't tell you how many. I still remember the CVS down the street, because I was in California. I was doing all that craziness, and I would never wear a mask in the store. We were best friends. She would yell at me, and I'd tell her to call the cops, and then she never would. So we were best friends. We were best friends during the whole thing. She's like, sure, your mask. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Call the cops? I'm like, the sheriff already said he's not coming. I'm like, what are you gonna do? It was a manager for a CVS down the street from where I lived in North County, San Diego. Because people, groupthink, I mean.
Well, lived in Portland, and the same thing is like, I never believed in the masks. And then,
No.
like, I thought it was kind of a joke, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on with COVID, because I just like said, oh, it's just one of those things. Like, if I get sick, I get sick.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And then like, as like the riots hit and things became crazy, like people in my building, I lived in a very secured condo, and the people in our community, they were all wearing these like fuck Donald Trump bracelets, and they were all wearing masks, and they were all like supporting these riots. And then like, as time transitioned, they like started like really taking the blinders off. Yeah. And they were like, this is insane. This is stupid. Yep. And it was interesting, because like when I left Portland and went to Arizona, it was like going from like a lockdown city to pure freedom in an instant, and nothing. It was so bizarre to me. But even in like Idaho, they'd like shut down the parks. And this was like only for like a couple of weeks, but they were arresting moms that were taking their kids to parks. And they had tape all over the playgrounds. They said, if you touch the playgrounds, you're going to go to jail. And it was crazy, dude.
Dude, huge governmental overreach. Fuck, dude. It still gets me fired up. I mean, like, messing with kids and locking things, it just doesn't make fucking sense. And it's not how America is. And it infuriates me. That's how I was when I went to Florida. What's funny in Florida is because it's a huge state where people vacation to, they bring their crap with them, and people wear a mask to this day when I go, because I have my business growing over there, and I go over there, people still wear masks. But it's Orlando, so thankfully we're not living in Orlando. I'm building my house in Polk County, which I love. You can look
Polk
up
County Sheriff.
Yeah, oh, dude, yep. I love it. It's like break into your house and you die. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? That was the greatest statement. I love that guy. I'm gonna put his statements on like T-shirts and stuff, and I'm gonna sell it.
Oh yeah,
I'll give him a piece of it too. I don't care.
That guy, I just watched the Governor DeSantis's interview with Pierce Morgan.
Yeah.
And he was talking about COVID and all that stuff. And, the one thing that he said that I loved is that he's like, I have the highest amount of senior citizens in the country. Mm-hmm. He's like, we have like the number one state for tourism. He's like, I was a breeding ground for COVID. And he's like, I wasn't anti-vax. He's like, I'm free for that. But he goes, when Delta hit and you saw the numbers skyrocket, and all these people already had the vaccine, he goes, and it just didn't change anything. He's like, I decided at that point in time, it was time to make a change. And yeah, I rolled, Pierce Morgan was like, I even said that you were creating a massacre by not implementing all these things. And he's like, you had the fastest, like build back. He's like, we never shut down. And so like, you have the best results moving forward, like with death tolls, with jobs, like all the things. And it's like, nobody knew at that time, but it's like, we went to this extreme end of the spectrum to try to prevent something. And it's like, if you know anything about immunity, like all you do is you weaken everyone's immunity system when you start cleaning everything, you lock everyone down. And now
can't go to parks. Like, this is so stupid. You can't go outside and exercise. Like, blew my mind. That's how California was. And like, there's a lot of federal land too. That's like the loophole at California. I mean, San Diego tried to take control of federal land during that time, and then the feds came down, and it was a huge thing about 2020, and they were like, no, you can't control like federal bureau land. Like, that's not how this works. And thankfully you could go there and do whatever the heck you wanted, because the state tried to take control of these lands, that you can't shoot guns there, you can't go there and go outside because we're locked down. And the feds were like, no, that's not how this works, which is funny because obviously we saw how the feds were reacting too. But
what's real interesting is our daughter's in kindergarten, and she goes to a truth and logic school. Yep. And awesome. The classrooms are very small, 12 kids per teacher. And they didn't shut down with COVID. And, a lot of people wanted to go to school there, and we saw, and it's a real aggressive school when it comes to like learning and like kindergarten. She's already reads books. She's got an hour of homework every day. Awesome. It's pretty cool. They actually just won this. They do mock trials starting in 9th grade. And they won their national contest, and they went to Carnegie Hall where they performed, and it was super cool. Yeah, but like, they like make the kids compete. So like they did this Christmas thing where they go in and sing, and one kid from each grade gets to do the speech in front of like 5,000 parents. Kindergartner doing like a 2-minute speech, dude, and the kids compete for that. But the one thing they've said,
because their fears haven't been implanted by adults yet. That's what it is.
Oh yeah, and they make there's no freaking participation trophies. Nope. They make everyone play with each other. There's no bullying allowed, all this stuff. But anyways, what I was gonna say is the one thing that they've stated is this is the first like class of kindergartners that went through the COVID pandemic fully, and they're saying this is the first class that has actually had learning issues out of all, like, so they benchmark where all their kids are in the curriculum, and they're saying it's all due to screen time. Like, even talking to, my wife, and she's like, I didn't think that Reagan was watching much screen time, but she's like, obviously, because we were going to the parks and all that stuff, but she's like, obviously just being at home naturally would have increased that.
Yeah, that's the same struggle I go through with my boys right now. And that's why, no matter what, obviously going through our craziness, we're going to Florida. And I'm going back to what I did growing up. I did a lot of hunting, a lot of fishing. In Florida allows me to go hog hunting, things like that. And we're just going to go heavy with it. I'm sure my wife still likes to go to Disney. She's obsessed with it. Obviously, I disagree with the company, but hey, it is what it is. We got Florida. I can get the best of both worlds. But like I said, like a school down the street, their whole basis is 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And that's their whole premise of how they teach their kids. Smaller classrooms. And like rule 1, take accountability. That's the whole thing with the school. I'm like, obsessed. We're still trying to get them into that school. Because like you said, everyone wants to go to those schools because they're the places to go. Because they're like the beacons of light in this chaos.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're like... so Reagan kindergarten, their motto is obedience. So it's they have a different theme for each grade, and it's amazing. But like when you walk into the school, it's got the weather doors when you walk in, but there's an armed security guard standing right there, and he's monitoring cameras. And that's the thing is like the teachers are armed. They have concealed carry in the school. They allow it, right. And it's like it's in my opinion, I'm like it's still just not enough. And so like someone posted yesterday is like, what do we do to like protect these schools and these children? And it's like, like I was referencing earlier, is like everybody wants to like call the person with the gun, but now we put freaking signs on schools that say gun-free zones, and these fucking psychos go to these places where they know is the most innocent, most vulnerable people in the world. And we're so scared to arm somebody. And it's like, instead of them just saying like, let's arm somebody to create a solution right now, all they say is let's ban the guns, and that's going to create the solution. But it's like the last person that's going to go turn the guns in are the psychos.
Oh, complete. Well, I heard this analogy. You gotta love social media sometimes. I don't try and dive into it, but some people are funny. Like look at Harry Potter. It's like, could you imagine if one of the students just went around like killing other students, or like probably wouldn't make it very far? Why? Well, because they all have wands, and the teachers are more trained. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's not sad. I mean, seeing the events over the last week, Uvalde and the recent Nashville one, drives me insane, and it makes my blood boil. But at the same time, like I don't think just removing that objects are not the issue. The issue is mental health, and like we're pushing these kids down a path. Like I've seen it even happen in my boys' life where people will be like, "Oh, don't fight." I'm like, "No, they're boys." Like it's. Like I've climbed like massive trees where I'm surprised I didn't die, and I was even a bad kid. I just did stupid, crazy things, get into fights. It happens, right? Like there's sure I'm not gonna let my boys like have like a death match in the living room, but like they need to like boys are gonna do that stuff. That's okay. It's not wrong to be a boy and wanting to do these things. There was even a case I saw recently with a man in Texas who, and for those of you who know like the Tim Pool podcast, he was on there, but his son, his wife was a doctor and said that, he wants to be a girl. And there's a lot of evidence, a lot of situations where like the son would go to a friend's house and be like, hey, can I get regular clothes? My mom only loves me when I wear girl clothes. And it's all documented through these court cases. But unfortunately, the way the system was set up in Texas is actually really bad. The wife got full custody and she ran to California, and he hasn't seen his son for 2 years. And obviously California is a sanctuary state. So that's my issue we see now. It's just like the slaves back in the day where they're like, hey, like our state has these laws and this person ran away. Now, slavery is a bad thing. That's not what I'm getting at here. But now we're seeing states that are disagreeing on laws. And where does that go? Where does that lead?
Well, that, what the most interesting thing is, and you and I were actually messaging on Facebook about this, is like my wife made that post about, California and like, basically people can have this as a sanctuary state, and people like from California had no idea that it's even going on. And that's the problem that happens with a lot of these things is like they hear the top lining issue and it's spun in a way that makes you think that you're protecting these people. And, in my opinion, and, if somebody disagrees with me, I'll say it right to their face, they're a disgusting human being, is that having a gendered drag queen read storybooks to children is unacceptable. Like, that just does not need to happen. And you know what's crazy? 99% of transgender drag queens would agree with that statement. It does not need to happen. It's like, there's no reason for it. And, you know, I'm all for if somebody an adult wants to go off and do those things, but don't push it on the children. They don't need to see that stuff. It's like, you know, hearing, I think it was on Patrick Bet David the other day, they were saying that in this kindergarten, or maybe it was on Project Veritas too, but they had these kindergartner teachers teaching the kids to say to the other kids, like, you know, you were born a male, but maybe that you feel like a girl. It's like, I guarantee you 9.9 out of 10 kids have probably thought maybe they were a girl at one point in time.
Yeah.
And it's like, now the teachers are like, you know, being told like, oh, it's basically like the military, the old don't ask, don't tell situation, you know?
Yep.
It's like,
well, what's funny is people always bring up the military, and when I was in the military, and this was all going on since after 2010, so when things really kicked off, and I want to go back to the days when we could paint pinup girls on planes. And people were like, "Oh, that you can have whatever you paint. I really don't care." I'm like, because your whole job is to kill people. You're in the military. Your whole role is either facilitating that process to defend the country and freedoms that we hold dear, and not being able to just be, you know what I mean? Like, you're making light of a terrible situation to begin with, and they try and make everything politically correct. My squadron used to be called the Death Dealers. Had an awesome Grim Reaper logo. I still have patches. I found old ones that I have from my time. But now they had to be called the Vikings because, you know, got to be correct. Mind you, they were called the Vikings in the past. In the 80s, they became the Death Dealers. I think it's a way better name. You know,
the Death what?
Death Dealers.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah, man. It was an awesome Grim Reaper logo. It was great, dude. I mean, it was during the 80s where I think we had the most deaths in the military from boot camp and stuff, too, which had its own issues, but it's the military. It's not supposed to be like that. You want people that are, you know, kind of a little crazy on the inside to begin with. But, yeah, I don't. If there's one issue I won't budge on, it's definitely for the kids. Don't mess with my kids. I mean, obviously, my son currently, he won't be in a public school after this as we move to Florida in the summer, but you know, he's at a regular school here in North County, San Diego, and they did put a mask on him one day. And, I went straight there. And I was like, hey, don't you put a experimental medical device in my son. I'm like, because you think you have power? I'm like, you don't. The issue is in California, and I agreed to it at the time, but it solidified with me and my wife. We're like, okay, good thing he's getting pulled. He's only in kindergarten. The rest of the school, they don't do any of this crap. We've gone to PTO meetings. We have been very involved, and I know that this stuff thankfully hasn't spread to every school. The school is actually pretty neutral on all this stuff. They just stay out of it, which is weird for a public school in California. I can tell you middle schools and high schools are way different. So we already knew this wasn't a permanent plan, but they backed down pretty quick because they have no basis on it. And it's like, no, like you want me, like you call me, tell them to pick them up. And I'm like, I will, because these teachers think that they're the parents. And I don't know why the system has gotten this out of hand. Like, you're a parent, like you're responsible for your kids, not the teachers. It's
so bizarre, dude. Like, I just don't get it. Like I mean, there's a lot of great teachers, and like Ron DeSantis even said on that interview with Pierce Morgan, he said, dude, when we opened up the thing, basically saying we incentivize teachers to come out here, he's like, it was a crazy, like, and he says the same thing with police and first responders. He's like, we're getting floods of people wanting to come out here, and he goes, and it's just not conservative. It's Democrats too. And here's the thing. And this is what I hate. This is what I like, dude, when you look at a Democrat and a Republican, there's like a very small difference. But now they're like both like right down the middle. But now you get these extremes on both sides, and it completely swings. Exactly. It completely swings it off to the side. And so like when DeSantis is like, yeah, he's like, you know, he goes, from when I was nominated the first time to the second time, I picked up 1.5 million more votes.
Yeah, only like 2 counties went Democrat in that election. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. And of course, Orlando's one of them. It's like the only Democrat city left. I mean, he took Miami. He took Miami-Dade. It has never happened in a long, long time. That city has always voted against any Republican. But it's showing you that in today's world, people are looking for stability. They're looking for structure and someone who makes decent decisions to give you freedoms. You know? I mean, people get torn apart. You know, I mean, and actually, going back to the trans, anyone who's like wondering, like, because we're just one sided, obviously, where we are in our beliefs and our between religion and everything. I'm like, go look up Gays Against Groomers.
Oh yeah,
I love that organization. Like, it shows you that they're just not with it.
Yeah, they had the guy that I think he's the vice president or whatever. He was just on Patrick Bet David.
He was, yeah.
And it's exactly what he said. It's like they just use them as a vehicle to try to infiltrate this talk. And it's like that. I mean, it's like anything else, dude. Every predator is going in groomer is going to look for a way to try to get to the kids. And that's the thing, is they're going to use every means necessary.
Yep.
And it's like seeing in that Project Veritas thing, when they're interviewing that teacher, they were saying if Michael now identifies as a Michelle, she's allowed to go into the women's locker room. She's allowed to do all these things. And I'm just like, I'll be damned the day like that if my daughter was ever playing in a sport and there was a man there and going into that locker room, shit would hit the fan. I'll tell you that much. Like, one, it would never happen in the situation that we're in. Right. But two, like, and it's so interesting because, going to the school, it's like, because it's never talked about, and people would say like, well, you're suppressing their feelings. Oh no, trust me. You see these kids, it's very, very different than what you see in public school. I went to public schools. I seen it happen. I actually lived in Portland. And what's really interesting is like when I talk to our friends in Portland about like furries and things like that, because in Idaho, there's a lot of the schools here have furry situations in the public schools. It's funny in Portland, all my friends that live out there, they're like, I've never heard of this. Like, so like even in Portland, like in some of this extreme stuff isn't even happening.
Yeah. Same here in California. Yeah. Oh my God, dude. I mean, I'm gonna have to bring you back at some point. We can rant further. I know I have another meeting coming up. I'm already late for it, but that's okay. Oh my God, I could talk about this stuff for hours, and that's why I also brought on some like solo podcast shows on this, because I just want to rant, and because it's just I can't stand it anymore. I know you've looked at politics too, and it's something that's definitely in my future, at least at the local community. I saw a post from a friend recently, and it was showing how religious importance is down, community involvement's down. And I'm like, you're pulling these polls from like these news sources that are all one-sided. I'm like, there's a lot of us that are still not even 30 yet. I'm like, we don't agree with this crap. And I'm like, and there's a lot more than you'd think. But when you pull polls from like the Wall Street Journal, you're only going to get one section of the demographic. People like me, I'm too busy working. I don't care. I'm too busy taking care of my family. I care enough about the issues, but
oh yeah,
man. So I'm sure anyone watching this, if they want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Oh, just email or Facebook, I guess.
For sure. I'll link your Instagram down below as well. And I'll include, if you are interested, obviously, as a real estate agent looking to kind of break against the norm and create a business that you can actually like be happy about, I'll also link Channel Junkies down below. That's Jesse's marketing company / coaching company that has changed my life. And I know if you're in this position, you've watched this far, you probably are pretty aligned with us. So you probably should hurry up and just get over here at this point. That's what I tell everyone. Like, there's no point just sitting around because the world is not getting better.
You know what I always tell people is I always say it's if you're going to say no, you better know what you're saying no to.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're second guessing something, it's like always look into things. Like, that's like probably the biggest thing I learned about waiting for 2 years to go to EXP is like, I just listened to everyone else's BS and chatter and negativity about EXP. And then when I literally took my 2 hours to like going into EXP, when I finally had enough, it's like, it's the old saying, you have to feel enough pain before you start moving towards pleasure. Yeah. So now, even with like Real Broker and all these other ones out there, like I've interviewed with all of them. Like, I need to know that this opportunity, and even some of the top guys at EXP, they always say is like, it takes real shift in the industry for like something really to change. And they're like, has anything happened in the last like since EXP? No, but something will probably come along that's a different situation.
Yeah.
So we just don't know what that is. Like, having knockoffs is not change. No. And like all of them now recently just made a lot of changes that benefit the companies. And that's what I love about EXP is because they do the 50% guarantee.
Yep.
And I mean, there's just so many benefits, which we could talk about.
Oh, it is. And what's great is we see companies like Real Broker and Compass, like they're struggling.
Oh yeah.
And it puts a smile on my face because, I mean, you don't try and be a knockoff if you can't play.
Well, I just saw the top 10 brokerages of the year. They just released their earnings, and EXP was the only top 10 brokerage that actually saw growth in both volume and units and agent count.
Yep.
Super cool.
It's awesome, brother. But hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. Anyone you can,
absolutely.
Obviously, if you leave comments below, I will leave all the contact information for Jessee and myself down below as well. And hope you guys enjoy this and see you in the next one.
See you, man.